Welcome back to Point of View. Going back into our discussion, you were telling us, Fredrick, a little bit more about your organization, Andy, and that you reach out. It's a two-way thing. They can reach out to you and you reach out to them. And what has been the feedback on the ground with the cases that you've interacted with? Has it been positive, and what milestones have you been able to achieve?
You know, in anything you do as a human being, there will be positive stories and there will be some not so good stories.
Yeah.
And so we have our positive stories of where you've helped someone and you see they can earn an income and they're living independently and they become some sort of a role model to others who see, so I can make it, so they commit to the program. But you'll have still others who think perhaps we are in the business of giving free money, so if you help them to start a business, they will go and squander the money, and the next day they'll still be coming at your door and thinking that you've forgotten that they actually were supported. So all these, there's two sides to it. So in hundreds, there are people who have been supported to do internships. In hundreds, there are people who have been supported to start small-scale businesses. But also, there are now those who have graduated on and they've been employed, for example, from an internship, and then they've gotten an employment. And so we work with the employers also to ask and just trying to get a feedback from them on how they find it working with person with disability, and if there's any other support that they need for us to be able to provide it so that they feel comfortable to work with a person with disability. And actually something that I would wish to challenge any other employer out there who hasn't had an opportunity to work with a person with disability, just to approach us and see how we can work together so that we ensure that there's a diversity at the workspace. All
right. Thus, from your experiences, tell us in terms of in a short time, maybe 5 years, what can we expect to see on the scene with regard to rights of people with disabilities being respected, upheld, and maybe see them progressively improve their situation in society?
In 5 years, I'm looking at a society that doesn't discriminate on the ground of disability, but also I'm looking at, given that we are a society that is diverse, to see at least from each office we have a person with disability working there. And because this will improve the interaction that we have amongst colleagues. For example, if you are working with a colleague who has a disability, you will be able to understand them more, and you can actually advocate on her or his behalf when you go outside there, when you hear somebody talking something that isn't true about a person with disability. And also looking at the whole framework of accessibility. How can we make, say, Nairobi, Kenya, accessible to person with disability so that I do not necessarily need to be pulled around to do my own personal cause, for example. So if we ensure that even the roads that we're putting up, we have pathways that wheelchairs can pass, we have ramps, for example, that lead into buildings, and lifts that are accessible to person with disability. And when we say ramps, it's not a steep thing. We're not looking. We're looking for something that somebody can ride a wheelchair and get to the places they want to go,
even on their own.
Yeah. So and that's really, people want to be independent. By the way, as a person with disability, you don't want to be minding people always to support you. Of course, there will those who want to support you out of good heart. But it also becomes a burden, and that's what we don't want. So if we ensure that infrastructure, the environment is inclusive and accessible, that's the one key thing that people are looking for. All
right. Moving on, a few days ago, we had the International Women's Day and ultimately the week. And there's an article that I was reading on your website, and with a 1/3 rule, majority rule in representation of women in parliament, there's the assertion that the whole women movement doesn't really cater for women with disabilities.
Yeah, this is a fact that I find and is really bad treatment of women with disability, because within the mainstream women movement in Kenya, they haven't picked up issues of women with disability as part of their agenda. And you'll find out that, for example, in all the 47 women representatives in Kenya, and if you go to any opportunity that are provided for women, if a woman with disability present themselves, they will always be told that, no, you have your slots as a person with disability, so go to those. But somebody arguing out that I'm a woman first before I have a disability,
Yeah.
people don't listen to that. So I wonder, why are women saying that it's their human rights to be represented, yet they don't want women with disability to be represented amongst themselves? I think that's a fallacy, and it is not right for women movement leaders to really discriminate against women with disability, because they are women first before they have a disability.
And have you had an opportunity to maybe take it to them, or have them sit them down and, you know, give them 1, 2, 3 proper direction?
We actually through the Gender Commission, because it's the government mandated body to try and fix all these gender role representation, we've asked them to meet the leaders who are appointed by the AG to look at how we can actualize the 2/3 gender role representation, and we require that they meet women with disability so that they can talk about their representation, and also in future how that is going to be undertaken. Because if it's women, also within women movement or women, the 2/3 gender role, also women with disability to be represented there, and that's something we're going forward with, and we really want to challenge it even legally, so that women with disability are not discriminated within the women movement.
That's very true. I look forward to keeping track on that initiative there. But on the other hand, why don't we see a lot of women with disabilities championing for their cause and, you know, standing up for their rights out there?
As you understand that even the life of women movement in Kenya has just come of age recently. So it is even within the disability movement. There's one issue, because on the piece, if you read, also talking about why is it that even within the disability movement, we don't have enough organization for women with disability so that they champion their specific issues.
Yeah.
And all and our discussion we were having in our office, people are saying perhaps is from the aspect that people still feel marginalized within the movement itself, and people don't have the confidence to come out and push for their own issues. And then people know they've been accustomed to the fact that it's men who should be first or should push for this thing, and us we should just follow within the disability movement, forgetting that also within the disability movement there are specific issues that need to be addressed by women with disability. So we are trying to work out and see how do we raise the voices of women with disability even within the movement, as we go towards also bringing their voice within the women movement in Kenya. Okay. So that is an issue that actually I think shouldn't be there.
All right. I also saw your focus on persons with disabilities being accommodated in the prison system. Share with us a little bit more about that.
I made a trip to Community Maximum Prison, and you know this is a prison that takes in people on death row and on all these life imprisonment. And my going there was just to understand what happens in prison, because I know there are people with disability in prisons. I didn't anticipate that there would be huge number. I was surprised, and we were being told by people manning this particular prison that many of them have been there for years, and there isn't particular initiative that are meant to help them.
What numbers are we
for
talking
example,
about?
this particular prison only had 25 that met us, but it's in hundreds.
Wow.
And so are other prisons. But what was interesting is that some of these people get disability when they're in prison. So there's a huge problem there, people that we need to focus on. And majority of them are not being visited by their relatives. So it means they won't be able to access things like toiletries or just having someone to talk to. And so we said that as an organization, there's something that we need to do to ensure that prisons are accessible.
Yes.
And any correctional facility in Kenya is accessible to persons with disability, because it doesn't mean when I have a disability that I can't get on the wrong side of the law. It doesn't mean when I have a disability I can't be a guest of the state. So having that in mind, we need to ensure that the criminal justice is also inclusive, and that, for example, we got someone who's deaf and was convicted without a sign language interpreter. So it means when the prosecutor was working on his case, he didn't reply because he didn't have a sign language interpreter.
That's
and neither did the judge order for such to be there. So you don't know if really he is he was responsible for the crime that he was being convicted on.
That's true.
And so
but
that's someone who's like unheard. So we're looking into ways of now revisiting some of those cases and see that justice is served to this guy, irrespective of whether he is deaf or not. What we are saying is that we agree that there will be those people who are in conflict with the law, but let due process be followed. Let the criminal justice be accessible to persons with disability.
Indeed,
because they're all Kenyan, and we, as a Kenyan, the Constitution guarantees everyone a fair hearing before they are convicted.
So you will be following up on
we
that case?
We actually plan to be following not only on his, but a lot more cases.
Okay, all right. As we wind up, maybe our viewers at home would like for you to give us a breakdown of maybe certain examples of disabilities and which ones are preventable or can be treated early, and maybe the after effects not so limiting on their part.
Of course, we have different types of disabilities. We have autism, we have visual impairment, we have physical impairment like myself. I said hearing impairment, and then we also have people who have intellectual disabilities. All these disabilities can be managed and people enabled to live independent lives. For example, I suffered polio when I was at the age of 2.
Okay.
And you know, polio is a preventable disease.
Yeah.
So there's a way, and they have those who get hearing impairment out of meningitis or something like that. So there are diseases that are curable or preventable through vaccination that people can, small children can be taken to vaccination, and later they will avoid, they will escape having a disability. But there are disabilities that people acquire when they're adults. For example, road accidents, and those will have people suffering spinal cord injuries and something. So those you only need to manage them so that people can still lead independent lives. Yeah. Okay,
all right, wonderful. Thank you very much for that insightful conversation. It's been a pleasure having you on set with me. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking about the role of persons with disabilities in the Kenyan society. With me in studio has been the director of Andy, Fredrick Ouko. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for your time.
It has been Point of View, and I've been your host, Linda Kruger. Remember, keep it TVC.